I truly believe no one in our conference can guard her. So,
is that somebody, and maybe there are other examples of this, that you see in practice every day? She's maybe a better shooter than her percentages have been. Do you, in that instance, sort of put it on her, as in like, okay, she's just going to start making more of those shots? Or is that something that you consciously are like, okay, well, we got to get her better quality looks?
It's not necessarily better quality because people were just playing 15 feet off of her because she's fast. So it's really just getting the reps in and shooting. A lot of shooting is confidence. These kids a lot of the time know how to shoot. It's just in their head. They've been told they're not a shooter, you're a driver, or whatever it is. Giving her the confidence that she can make those shots, and I want her to take those shots. And I think that was a lot in the beginning. It was she would take it and look at me. I'm like, you're open. I want you to shoot it. There's nothing more to it. So a lot of it is confidence and me believing in her that I want her to take that shot, and then her also believing in herself and knowing that she's put the work in to knock it down.
Yeah. You already alluded to exams and that sort of taking precedence over other things. A trip to Stetson on Saturday. How do you sort of navigate preparing for that?
Like I said, we're trying to keep it short on the court, but, the first couple of days this week, we were just working on us and working on the things that we need to clean up, and today we will start focusing a little bit more on Stetson and what they want to do and what we want to do to take them out of that.
Yeah. Nice. Okay. I know you got to get to practice, so I'm going to cut it there. Anybody have any questions for Coach Banbury?
All right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I agree. I mean, Nevaeh had 10 offensive rebounds the other day. Yeah.
That's a good move. I'm sure you're happy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we need to get the ball. Possessions.
Anybody else? Question for Chelsea before we get her out of here. By the way, they're back at home next Saturday, right? I'm not wrong on
that. The 21st.
Right? The 21st.
The 21st.
Next Saturday, the next home game for the women. So
be
sure you circle that one on your calendars, all right?
All right.
Yeah, next
Good.
Saturday. You got
next
it.
Saturday,
awesome.
yep.
Chelsea, get to
Thank
practice. Thank you as always. Good to see you. All right. Blake, are we rolling? Are we rocking and rolling? Okay, so we can move on. We can move on to baseball. I think that's next on my list here. Joey Hammond. He's okay, I was going to say. I saw him over there. What's up, Coach? How are you?
Wonderful. How are you?
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
All right, so believe it or not, baseball season is quickly approaching, right? Once the holidays hit, it'll just basically be here. Most wins in the program's Division I history a season ago and a conference championship. What was the fall like for the program? I'm sure ending on a note like that, and then, of course, like giving Clemson all they could handle in a regional, that does things for a program past when it happens, right? If that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think it kind of starts even in the summer. I think we had to retool. So we lost a lot of older veteran players, and so part of that was retooling and having some success. It kind of made us appealing to a caliber player that maybe we couldn't have had access to in the past. So that was exciting, and we had to build that. And then when we got to the fall, it was literally so many new faces. Probably 2/3 of the roster is new, and so we had to instill some of the things that we value the most, really get competition going, and quite frankly, and I mean this in the best way, but try to turn the page from last year, because last year was last year. And we need to kind of start our own chapter here, build off the things that we value. But this is a completely different group. And, there are some leftover guys, key contributors that understand what that looks like. And we're going to count on them. But the fall was highly competitive, a lot of learning, which I thought was fun. It was incredibly exciting for me and our staff. And, a lot of promising things for sure.
Let's start with some newcomers. So my understanding is, from a pitching standpoint, that's where a lot of transfers have come in and will look to contribute. Retooling is an interesting phrase. It's an interesting concept in the year 2024, Joey, in college baseball, right? You do it differently now than maybe you would have as an assistant at Wake Forest when you were there. What goes into evaluating, finding, just assessing the fit of a transfer, whether it be a pitcher, position player, whoever?
Yeah, well, there's a lot. I don't know how much time we got for that, but there's a lot to it. I think, well, first of all, we value relationships. So the phone calls, the meetings, the vetting of the player is priority number one. There's so many talented players out there. I think you guys know this, that play, on all different types of teams, whether they're Power Four, or mid-majors. And so the talent is really important, don't get me wrong, but that becomes secondary for us as it relates to making sure that we get the right guys that are wired the right way, that want to compete, that value relationships, and that are open for development. And so we don't want finished products. We don't want guys who think they have all the answers. And we don't want guys who are not open-minded about what this could look like. And so that's the first part. And then once you weed your way through some of that, because we had to say no to some talented players because we just didn't think they were really good fits, because I'm going to be really sensitive to the what will be eventually 34, but to the 40 guys in that locker room, I'm really sensitive to that room. And so we got to keep that a priority, and sometimes you can get distracted from that because the talent can really kind of attract you. But I thought we did a really good job of making sure we get the right guys. These guys are fantastic. You'd want them babysitting your kids. You'd want them, handling your money one day or something. They're just responsible. They're really good dudes. But what's really important, they also need, from a pitching standpoint, they got to be able to get guys out.
Yeah.
And so the talent was obviously really important in making sure that we had fits. So to your point, we, all three of our weekend starters graduated and/or got drafted. So that's a lot of innings that we had to replace, and I think we're able to do it from within, and we were confident we were going to be able to do it within, but that was never going to be enough. So we needed to add from the outside, and I think we nailed it, and we certainly have more pitching depth than we've ever had, not just potentially starting, but certainly in the bullpen, which I felt like was an area that we needed to get better in, and we kind of got by the skin of our teeth last year in the bullpen, and we had to really makeshift some things, which doesn't give you much margin for error, and I think we're in a much better place now from an ability standpoint to be able to actually get guys in the right roles and not ask them to extend beyond maybe what their strengths are.
Yeah, and just to follow up on the mix of guys in the rotation, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys did it from a number of different pools, right? Like you've got a Division III transfer who looks to factor in. You've got guys from some of the bigger schools who look to factor in. You have a freshman who's from like nearby Kernersville, right? Is that somebody who's going to factor in, or is that maybe a position player? Is that what I'm thinking?
Yeah. So, but no,
but
you're
either
right.
way, it goes to show you add players in so many different ways from so many different avenues these days.
No doubt. So we do. We have a couple Division II, Division III guys that are going to factor into the weekend rotation. One in particular had an incredible fall. Some of the most dynamic, electric stuff that we've seen, opposing teams as well. We've hit a home run on him, and so that's going to be fantastic. And we got him from Wingate, so that was a steal. And we might only have him for 1 year. He's a draft eligible sophomore, and there are more evaluators out there. We probably only going to have him for 1 year, but that's okay. We'll take him. He's fantastic. And then a freshman from Florida that we love, big, tall, strong, right-handed pitcher. Another one from Indiana. So. Couple freshmen, arms that are really going to factor in, and then again another Division III transfer, and then a couple junior college arms. So, we really look under every rock to try to fill this thing out, and I think we did a really good job.
What about the returners? For those who paid attention to your team in the spring and maybe watched them all the way through the postseason, some familiar names that look to contribute again. Who's back?
So starting on the mound, I think the biggest pleasant surprise was Dalton Olsowski. So Dalton was a freshman last year. He pitched a lot of leverage innings for us. Actually started the last game against Coastal. Didn't go the way he wanted in the regional, but he's a really good pitcher. He really developed, and he certainly looks to have secured a weekend rotation spot. His stuff has gotten better. Pitchability has improved, so he's gotten a lot better. And then Adam Grintz is back. He was a huge part of our bullpen last year, and so having him back as an extra grad Really helps our bullpen, some stability there. He had a lot of big outings for us, finished some games for us, did a really good job. And then positionally, probably three faces, returners, most notably Connie Derschlag. So Connie's back, and you'll see him in different, forms this year. He's going to pitch for us as well. So when we recruited him out of Gaston, he was a two-way. He just had some shoulder issues, so we kept him just as a position player last year. He's going to pitch in the bullpen for us this year. Has done a really good job in the fall, but he had probably the single most impressive fall offensive performance I've ever seen at any level that I've been at. His fall was the most, metrically and just by the eyeball test, he hit balls further and harder than anybody I've ever seen. He's not a big guy, but so we're expecting big things from him. And Braden Simpson's back. He had a great year last year as a sophomore where he hit 300 with 12 or 13 homers. And then kind of a catalyst for our offense, who's a senior. He's back, Miggy Echevarria. So Miggy's kind of a Swiss Army knife. He can do a lot of different things, provide some stability, leadership, and just energy he brings every day.
Yeah, Miggy, some really big postseason hits too, for sure. You talk about turning the page from last year. But in the interest of building a program, you can't necessarily overlook it to the point where it doesn't matter, because suddenly you win a conference championship, you're competitive in a regional, it kind of ups the standard, right? Like, how do you toe the line with a new group, whereas, hey, this is what last year's team did, therefore the standard is now here, but we're also a new group, it's a new season?
Yeah, I mean, I think you use it just as it's an expectation. That's what the standard is. That's what the expectation is what the previous group has put in front, and so that's how we talk about it. And again, the values, the things that we valued the most with our practice time and the day in and day out from energy, the things that we value the most are still steadfast. They still remain in place. But I think it's just a reminder, certainly not in a negative way, but a reminder that they haven't accomplished anything. This particular group, you guys haven't accomplished anything. So, it's wonderful. We think we have, but we don't have any wins yet. So, that from that point, we want to turn the page to keep them hungry. We know what that expectation is. We know what our capabilities are, and that still remains the same. But in the same token, we knock them back down a little bit to say, but you haven't done anything yet. So we need to get to work.
Last thing for you, schedule is out. Anything in particular on the calendar that excites you about this upcoming spring?
I mean, there's challenges throughout. I think we're going to learn a lot about our club with some of the trips that we have. But also, look, I'm really excited about playing other mid-major teams and programs that we have an expectation to beat. And I think that's the next step for our program, is not just being comfortable with being able to compete with Power 4 teams and maybe winning here and there, but it's the expectation to win every other game that we play. And how are we going to handle those games, I think is really exciting. We do have some marquee matchups. We're playing, on the road at University of Georgia. We'll play Wake Forest twice. We have a weekend series at Minnesota, which will be really neat. It'll be in the football stadium in the Dome. So that's another, Power 4 program, Big Ten program. So it's littered with some challenges up and down, but a lot of really good mid-major teams as well. So we have a 3-game series against Mercer, and they're really strong. And so App State and the typical midweek games.
Yeah.
So the challenges start from the beginning to the end. But again, we look at it visually like a ladder. There are a lot of steps and milestones along the way, and you can't get to the top until you kind of build your ladder. And so it's a simple way, but there's a daily reminder for our guys. It's a pretty poignant message.
Awesome stuff. It'll be here before you know it, like 2 months.
Yeah, like 65 days, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. I'm excited, very excited for that. Anybody have any questions for Coach Hammond? Over here. Yeah, so the question is about how Coach goes about vetting players, like we talked about earlier with finding fits.
Yeah, great question. I'm not giving all my secrets away though. No, but look, we value phone conversations, to be honest with you, with the actual player. So it starts with that. If I can't carry a conversation on with you, then the likelihood of you enjoying your time here is going to be really low, because I'm going to be really hands-on. I'm going to have a lot of energy, and if we can't carry a conversation, you can be really talented. It's just not going to work. So that's kind of the first part, just interpersonal skills, because that's where development lies anyway, is in that communication. But I think it goes so much deeper than that. Like a couple things. One, we're going to have conversations with that player's coach and coaches that they've had, and we want to know what their experiences are. And I guess the best way to put it is I want to know how guys deal with failure. So to your point, we're going to go out and watch them as much as we can. But some of these players, Division III players, they play the same time we do. So the likelihood for me to go see them is very small. We might have a small window in the summer to go watch them in a summer league. But really what I'm trying to pay attention to is how are they when they fail? I just want to know. And this game is driven in failure so much. And so are you the guy that tucks your head and runs? Are you the guy that has big body language and people still? Look, you can look around and you see on the field who the alpha is and who the guys are that people rally around, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. And so we put probably a higher emphasis on those traits than we do even just ability. Again, I'm not like if you can't play, then you can be a great guy. You can't be on our team. Like, you know what I mean? But, like, it's threading the needle on that. But it's a great question, and there's a lot of layers to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Jim, yeah.
Yeah, great. So I think our guys are really excited. I do think that the change and so many new faces, I think they're incredibly confident because some of our veterans remind them of how talented they are. I think the conversation has been, this is a more talented group than what we've had even last year, and I don't think that's even arguable. I think it is. If you looked at a roster 1 through 40, this group is going to have better professional grades and evaluations than last year's group. So that gives them confidence, and they know that. But I also think that with that confidence is just this hunger, and I think there's some of the uncertainty and what those expectations are. That nervous energy, I guess is the best way to put it, is probably fueled the right way. I think it comes from a good place. It doesn't come from insecurity. It comes from this maybe anxiousness, right? It's not nervous, because like in nervous you're unsure of what work you put in. Anxious is you're unsure of what the result's going to be, but like I'm excited about it. And I think it's probably the best way to maybe put it for our team.
Anybody else? Questions for Coach Hammond? I've got one more. You guys made some program history with the guys drafted last year in terms of how you go pitch the program, and you mentioned it being a more appealing spot for players wherever else. Now, how does that change your conversation with those guys, or is it maybe just a better opening act per se?
Well, it's verification. So, like every one of these players that we're going to try to attract, let's be honest, they have aspirations to play professionally. If they don't, then we don't want them. Like, that's just the truth. Like, that should be your goal. And it's one thing to have a goal that doesn't really have a path to make that become a reality. And with these new changes to the draft, with 20-man drafts, it's a lot harder. So getting 2 players drafted from your club, especially at a mid-major, is a rare thing. And to be able to do that, I think if anything else, it provides verification to the thing that we talk about, is giving you a platform to have your ultimate dreams come true. And oh, by the way, in the meantime, you're going to help us win a lot of games. And so there's opportunity, and then there's a pathway. And I think when you can combine those 2 things, you have the ability to get it right. Now, again, you know, who knows? It remains to be seen. But I think the opportunity with the verified pathway for that to happen is important. And then all it takes is you bring a couple guys in. So, we again, as I mentioned, Dylan Story is the pitcher I had mentioned before.
Yeah.
You know, again, every pro scout in this state knows who he is and is going to be here every Friday night if that's when he ends up pitching. And so with that, provides so much of an opportunity for everyone else on the roster, because those dudes are here, and they might be here to see Dylan, but they're going to see you whether you like it or not. And so you have an opportunity to provide, you know, a chance for the future there too. And I think that kind of happens, you know, with everyone. I think that happened a little bit last year. Gus was there, and he performed every Friday. But then they were going to come see Peyton hit. And when they saw Peyton hit, and then the opportunity provided for Gus to show that he could do it against a team like Clemson, and then you end up getting drafted. And I think without those 2 tandem, I don't think either one of them would have gotten drafted, and without our performance. But I think they're both talented enough to have deserved that opportunity. So there's so many things that kind of factor in. I just think showing a path for that to happen matters.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Anything else for Coach Hammond before we let him go? One more. What do you got?
Pitching is about speed. Seems like.
Yeah.
90+ miles. Where do we stand in that category?
Okay. So the questions about pitching velocity in college baseball these days being higher and higher as opposed to where it's been. Where does the group stand in terms of how hard they throw?
Yeah, look, it's a tool, but it's just one tool in a tool belt, and it's valuable. And I think we're fortunate, not that we were hunting this per se, but we're fortunate to have the best velocity we've ever had. I think, Coach Manus is here, works with our pitchers, and I think if I'm not mistaken, I think we have 12 or 13 guys in the fall that have thrown over 90 miles an hour, and maybe five of them over 94 miles an hour. So we've never had that before. Which is great, but it's just a tool, because if you don't have the ability to locate, you don't have a secondary pitch, you can throw 100, we're going to hit 100 if you can't throw anything other than that. And so you got to throw it over the plate. And I think what helps with that is we have so many guys now that it puts the onus on you that if you don't throw it over the plate, we're going to go to the next guy, because there's more opportunities. Whereas in the past, we had to revolve the same guys because they're the ones who had the kind of, some traits. And it gives us the ability to maybe use someone who doesn't have velocity. Adam Grins doesn't throw the hardest, but he has some really unique traits with his fastball metrically that the velocity is not great, but with some of the other kind of hidden things with his fastball, he can throw a fastball by people without having the same velocity. And we know that. We use some of the data and the analytics to kind of help us with that. But yeah, it's important. It's in this day and age, you got to have velocity.
Yeah. Anything else for Coach Hammond before we let him go? And we anxiously await the start of baseball season, mid-February. All right, cool. Thanks, Coach. Appreciate you. All right, Mike Esposito is next. Coach Espo, how are you? Great to see you.
I really enjoyed watching you guys.
So does my wife.
Need him to recommend a barber, right? That's
We got several people in that club here.
all right, indoor season is underway. You guys have been to, Lynchburg and Boston as part of the early schedule? Is
Yes,
that correct?
yes.
Okay, yeah.
Just this past weekend.
Yeah. How did you feel about the team's performances in both of those?
Liberty was the best we've ever opened in my 20 years here, so at a very high end. Boston was a mixed bag. We just took our better distance kids up there. Though we did have one school record up there, but by and large, this was the best we've ever opened.
Yeah, very good, very good. Cole Wilson broke some records. Talk about his impact early on in the season.
Yeah, Cole is a heptathlete, decathlete. He went to an NAIA school as a thrower, and one of the things we really want to do is emphasize the multi-events. And we have, I believe, the best young coach in the country, Coach Holmes. We also have the best pole vault coach in the country, Coach Houston. And that's kind of the merger there. So that's kind of the backdrop. Cole has we went from 5,100 points at the Florida school at the NAI level to 5,772, which is the Canadian under-23 national record. It's a Big South record by almost 300 points. It's very likely we'll make it into the NCAA meet. So that's a great opener.
Yeah, no doubt. I don't cover the track and field team a ton, but I did the Big South meet a couple of years ago, and Sydney Horn was a name, obviously, that pops at a time like that. Now, that was a couple of years ago, Mike, and she's still around, still contributing. I mean, that's huge for a team to have that kind of advanced athleticism and the leadership, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Sydney's a 50. This is her final year. She's been a 7-time All-American. She's been 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 7th, whatever. So she's been knocking on the door to win a national title. That also goes back to Coach Houston. They do rankings in the NCAA level. So you rank your top 4 kids. This is all 350 schools. we've consistently been in the top 5 in the women's pole vault. Last year we were in the top 5 in the men's decathlon. We were in the top 5 in the men's high jump. So it's a credit to my staff. I have the best staff in America. It's not even close. I mean that. They're incredible.
Yeah.
And Sydney's awesome, and there's only one place to go this year.
Yeah, for sure. We'll all hope for that and root for her. Who else stands out as sort of the leaders on this team?
Well, the Cole's certainly one of our leaders. Sydney's certainly one of our leaders. We also have, I guess, some kids that aren't they're conference level performers that are leaders as well. But this is by far the best men's team we've ever had.
Yeah.
I would venture it's the best Big South track and field team ever. I don't say that, we have some really high-end kids. Cole's a grown man. I mean, he's arguably one of the best athletes that has ever come through High Point.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of, there's in our sport, I could list 15, 20 guys.
Sure.
15, 20 girls. Our pole vaulters in general, Rachel Vesper, from, I'll mispronounce her name, Viola from France is one of the best. We have a young man from the Netherlands that's one of the best long jumpers in the country that just came to us from Mount St. Mary's. We have a pole vaulter coming from Venezuela at break that easily will be the best kid we've ever had.
Wow, that's incredible. It's funny. We were just talking to Joey Hammond, Coach Hammond for the baseball team about pulling recruits from various places. With track and field, it's a totally different story because you open it up to worldwide and internationally in a way that you don't see with other sports. How has that evolved into a pipeline or various pipelines throughout your time here?
Well, it's in some other sports like tennis and soccer, it's the international kids makes up a tremendous amount. So it's not just track and field. Men's basketball, there's quite a few international athletes.
Mm-hmm.
I probably get 10 emails every day from a Kenyan athlete, or you'd be surprised how often you get people reaching out.
Huh.
Some of this, Coach Houston has relationships around the world. He was one of the elite vaulter. The pole vault is a very niche event, so a lot of the power fours don't even mess with it because it's costly. You need a good coach. So he has relationships. It's a very small world. So we're not just like a Ricardo who's coming. This was a long process of kind of vetting because this kid had offers to some pretty good places.
Yeah.
But Scott, was a selling point. We don't look internationally, I guess aggressively, but they're typically, they're really good students. They usually, their academic rigor, I hate to say this, is far greater than what the U.S. system is. So they do really well academically. It's just kind of a hit. It's we're not looking all the time, but there's a lot of services out there that reach out to you.
Yeah, so say you get an email from said service about an athlete from wherever, right? And this can be maybe excluding pole vault where you've got this specific pipeline. What goes into evaluating if they are, in fact good enough for your program? Because I'm sure you probably, with the sheer volume that comes in, I mean, there are going to be athletes that just aren't quite up to the level that you would seek. How does that back and forth go?
Well, one of the things that, not the elephant in the room is that these international kids are looking for a lot of money. So they're not looking to come over here for free. So when you do that, track and field, we don't give many full rides. I alluded to one that we are, by the way. But so they have to be pretty special if we're going to invest that kind of money. Because with 12.6 to spread over cross country and track, that's just not a whole lot on the men's side. And there's massive, I'm not jumping tracks here, there's massive changes coming with this settlement. I don't know how much you guys have been following that. I can't speak for Mr. Hauser. That's going to impact the Olympic sports quite a bit.
Yeah.
One is very likely a roster cap, and The good news for us is we don't have football. That's a real godsend for track and field, especially men's. And but there's big changes coming, and there's two sides of this. Is that there's going to be some really, really good kids become available that we normally would not have access to. So if the SEC goes to a cap of 35, which they're talking, or 30, there's going to be some kids that normally would go to SEC schools that are now going to be available. We have to then plan ahead because we obviously have 75 kids on our roster right now. It's going to be a lot of, roster management, I guess, if that's the right word. Again, there's so many unknowns, but we have to prepare for that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered that question.
No, that's perfectly fine. That was good. You mentioned this being, you would argue, the best. Was this specifically on the male side that you just said? The
Yes.
best
Yes.
Big South team ever. I mean, that's high praise. How do you then navigate the expectations with this group and putting it into practice, understanding that you've got to take it day by day?
Well, you always talk about the next step, and we have progressed over the 20 years. I mean, I've been here 20 years. It's hard to imagine. I don't know if Sweet Old Bills was here 20 years ago, but with this group in particular, and the men, we just had a staff meeting today, and our focus is always now, can we get more kids to the national championship? We've been 23rd on the women. Can we be top 25 consistently? Those are the next steps. This year, indoors. To make the national indoor meet, it's harder to make that than the Olympic team. They take 16 across each event. And you're talking about all the best American kids, most of the best young international kids are here in the U.S. And we have a shot this year. The most we've ever taken was last year. We've taken 3 females. Last year we took a high jumper in Sydney. We think we have a shot to get 5 to 7 to 8 this year. So that's the next step. Now, we don't want to say the Big South Conference is a foregone conclusion, but with our resources and my staff, if we don't win the Big South, I should be fired. Now, the beauty of our sport is we can go to the Big South. I used to say this, but now we can't really be accused of running up the score because we're going to tell kids not to compete. But so I don't want to bypass the Big South, but you asked the question, how do you navigate those expectations?
Yeah, it's about the bigger
Yeah.
picture goal, right?
Let's be a national prominence.
Yeah.
And we have that chance because of the university. We have a staff my staff, I can't say enough. I'm in awe of them. And we have that chance. So we always talk to our kids. There's always a next step. For some of them, it's to get on the bus. For some of it, it's to make the conference roster. For some of them, it's to score in the conference. For some of those, their next step is to be on the podium. Their next step is then to win. Their next step is to make the NCAA first round. Their next step is to be an All-American. In Sydney's case and Andrew Taylor's case, their next step is to win a national championship.
Yeah.
So we haven't gotten to that last step. I'll figure that one out later.
It'll happen.
Oh, it's going to, yes.
It'll happen. Indoor season is underway. Coach, appreciate you. We don't get to do this often.
No, we don't.
Good,
I appreciate
good to
this.
talk to you.
Yes. And I would definitely would like to invite everybody to our spring meets. Last
Yes.
year we did have a flyover. I think I mentioned it here. Nobody believed me. We have 2 meets in particular, one in April and an early one in March. We'd love to see you out there. So the first one is named after Mr. Davidson, Coach Davidson, who was incredible, was an incredible mentor to me. And the second one is then named after Mr. Vert, who's been a tremendous, he's been the single biggest supporter of athletics at High Point.
Yeah.
So,
Awesome.
but thank you guys.
Yeah, look those up, get them on your calendar, and come out and support the track and field teams. Awesome. Thanks,
Yeah,
Coach.
Thank you very much.
All right. Good to see you.
Great job.
All right, let's finish up with Coach Alan Huss. Men's basketball playing neutral site game this Saturday in Greensboro, by the way, at the home of the Swarm of the NBA G League. The Novant Health Fieldhouse, App State the opponents. Yeah, there we go. There we go. All right, Coach. Good to see you.
Likewise.
Let's begin with the game this weekend. I mean, it's aside from your preparation with the intent to beat App State, it's kind of an interesting game. How did this come about, being it played at a professional venue? We'll call it, because that's what it is.
So it's a 2-year deal. We play them here in Greensboro this year, and then we go down to Hickory a week from Saturday next year, or a year from Saturday.
Yeah.
We play down in Hickory. So the theory behind it is students are gone, and so you're gonna have a smaller home crowd. It's a chance to get out where typically there aren't great crowds in those spaces anyways. Your students are gone. It's an opportunity to play in a different venue. You've got to win neutral site games to win in March, and so it's a great opportunity for us to be off campus, them to be off campus, do something a little different. I think if you look around the country, there's a lot of people in this window of time that look for these neutral games just because they make sense.
Yeah. So how will that, if at all, affect the team's logistical preparation for that? I mean, Greensboro's nearby, right? It's here basically, but it's not a home game. Will that change anything in terms of getting over there?
No, we will sleep in our own beds, which that's always nice. But we'll do our shoot around in our building, and it'll be a different routine with it being a 2 p.m. game. We won't have our typical all day routine that we'd have on a normal 7 o'clock weekday or weekend game. So it'll be different. It'll be a nice change up for us. We're of course coming off exams week this week and trying to get everyone kind of re-entered into a routine after a very non-routine week is always a challenge. I would imagine they're in exams as well, so it'll be a nice challenge for both of us against a great program in App State.
What's the practice schedule been like this week? Chelsea mentioned how she was handling her team. Obviously, exams changes things, changes how much you can have the guys, sort of in the gym.
Yeah, it's a balance. There's so much going on outside of basketball during exams week. You've got just the basic challenge of the schedule changing every day. We practiced at 10 o'clock this morning. They're 9:45 this morning because we have afternoon exams today. Yesterday afternoon we practiced in the evening because we had morning exams. We got out of there about 11 o'clock on Friday night. We had Saturday morning exams. So the guys are on fumes a little bit mentally right now. We're getting to the tail end of it. We got a couple with afternoon exams on Thursday and a couple with afternoon exams on Friday. Then we'll be done. But we've been kind of bouncing around every day. We'll take tomorrow off. We've had, I think, 2 really good 90-minute sessions to work on us the last 2 days, which is the first time we've really been able to do that since games started. We've been pretty much in 2-day prep mode the entire year. So we haven't had a chance to break down situational things and get different lineups out there. We've had an opportunity to do that the last 2 days. Hopefully that pays dividends as we move forward into the conference year.
So the team, with some guys getting healthy, is starting to sort of round into form. What I would imagine you envisioned sort of as the more whole version of this team entering conference play. Bobby Pettiford's healthy, playing well. Simon Hildebrandt back into the lineup. Terry Anderson healthy as well. If you could maybe put it at if we make a cross-sport football analogy, if you put it at a yard line, how close are you guys to the end zone in terms of it being as complete as you think the roster can be heading into conference play?
As long as we're going to use football analogies, I'd say we're finally on the field.
Yeah.
We've been sitting on the sideline thus far, most of us. We're on the field, but we're still on the wrong side of the 50. We've got a long ways to go.
Yeah.
But we're finally at 1st and 10. We're on the field. We've got the football, and we're hopefully we've got a plan. I mean, the beautiful thing is when you get the chance to finally work on things. Like today, we worked on a press break. We got pressed at the end of last game. We had a lineup out there that had never been out there together. So we're looking to get guys to certain spots, and most of it's pretty basic conceptually. You're trying to get the middle of the floor, get a catch in the middle of the floor, not get caught in a deep corner, and make sure we occupy certain spots. But I look out there, we've got Bobby, Keza, and Demar, who all three had been at the same spot when we had practiced it for the 7 or 8 minutes we practiced it in the preseason. But that's the way you typically install stuff. people learn where to be, then they learn the how and the why later on in the year. But because of the injuries, we just didn't have an opportunity to work on the how or the why. So we're just getting to that now. And you know, the thing that's interesting is we're still got a bunch of guys that are limited on how much they can do. So I think you'll see Simon can really shoot the basketball, but he's limited on how much he's even able to practice right now. And once we get past the first of the year, we're going to be out there hopefully healthy or healthier, and we're going to be out there and able to maybe develop some kind of cohesiveness on offense and some chemistry. And, you know, maybe then to go back to your football analogy, maybe then we'll get into the red zone and actually have a chance to score.
Yeah. I'm curious you mentioned the 2 90-minute sessions that you were able to work on some things with specific groups that hadn't worked on those things. Is that more of just like shoring things up for when or if specific groups are on the floor at the same time, like the press break you were just talking about? Or is that perhaps an opportunity to experiment with some new things that maybe call for implementation next time out?
I mean, it's a little bit of both. We have our daily vitamins. We work on our motion offense every day. We work on some of our defensive concepts every single day. You know, our pick and roll coverages, our one-on-one defenses, you know, and then just what we call disadvantage situations. Anytime there's a skip situation, the basketball goes from one side of the floor to the other, we really want to have them see two bodies. And then most importantly, we've been able to rebound with contact. We've had all these issues rebounding the basketball in the preseason, pre-conference schedule, and so much of that can be attributed to the fact we haven't practiced at full speed and full contact because I've been worried about contact. And sure enough, first time we do it full contact, Bodo gives DeMar a concussion. So there was maybe a thought process behind not going full contact. But now we've had an opportunity to practice a little bit full contact, and then, you know, the second part of that is we're back to running. We weren't playing as fast as we wanted to play because we were down bodies, and that allows people to tee off on you in the offensive glass when they're not worried about their transition defense. So, you know, hopefully we can shore that side of things up, which is just kind of a daily vitamin, something that we would normally do pretty much every day all year long that's been lacking. But then in addition to that, we haven't worked much on our 4-minute offense, and it's come back to hit us. And our 4-minute offense is, you know, up 6 or 7 points with under 4 minutes to play, and all of a sudden we want to take some time, be patient, but still be aggressive. What does that look like? Who are those lineups that need to be out there together? Because oftentimes those are different than first 35 minute of the game lineups. We haven't worked on any zone at all live, so we've had an opportunity to do that a little bit just in case we need to play a little bit of zone. Normally by this time we would have played a little bit of zone. So we've just been able to tinker a little bit, work on our vitamins, and just, you know, hopefully just move the progression forward.
Last thing for you, it was noted, I saw on the men's basketball social media accounts that 5 players in double digits a number of times this season. The scoring has been spread out. It's been balanced. I know that's sort of a staple of what you guys like to implement. Can I ask you to grade the offense to this point in the season? What would the grade be?
Oh, we stink offensively right now, but that's largely due to our lack of pace and lack of chemistry right now. And I think both of those will be fixed. I thought we had 2 really, really good days the last 2 days, just working on our flow, both out of transition and out of our set actions. We're vanilla ice cream right now. We got no toppings. And once we add things to it, we'll be much better.
Nice. Anybody have any questions for Coach Huss?
I think the communication's improving. The problem is we are putting ourselves in too many difficult situations unnecessarily right now. I've been actually very pleased with the communication. It's improving. What you'd like to see is maybe not put us in so many disadvantaged situations because we don't know what we're doing. That's coaching more than anything, and it's repetitions with the players out there, and I'll do a better job. They'll do a better job of not putting themselves in those situations as we get a few more reps.
Any more? Here you go.
Can I ask a question about Bodo? Does a great job rolling to help out when someone is driving in. But when he does that, Shots Ultra does a great job with
Yeah, I mean, so when Bodo's a help defender, when Bodo's a primary help defender, it's something we work on quite a bit, even though it looks like we don't. Number one, our defensive principle is to keep the ball off the outside third of the floor, and that's happened way too often. We really want to force the basketball to the middle towards the free throw line nail area. When we get in those situations where the basketball gets ripped to the outside, which is what happened at Greensboro a lot, then we get in those situations that we would call like a naked crackdown, which means we have a long run. Bodo comes over to help, and we have a long run to be able to go help the helper, to help Bodo's man in a crackdown situation. We have to make a choice at that point. Are we leaving a shooter? Are we going to help? Are we going to try to play two? Those situations, if you're in those too often, you're going to have a poor defense. So part of that is just conceptually we've got to be better, and we got to be better executing and keep the basketball off the outer third of the floor. The second piece of it is when we do force it middle, then we're in those short crackdown situations or stunt situations, then we've got to apply some physicality. And that's a little bit what I talked about, the rebounding, the situation you just referenced, that's what we work on every day. When we get in those rotation situations, we're pretty good when we're man on man and we just got to turn around and hit the guy next to us and go get it, we're okay. Where we're getting in trouble is when we're at a little bit of a disadvantage. Are we physical enough to overcome that disadvantage? Then are we playing with enough of a motor to be able to have a guy come from, the two guys that are on the top of the floor, will they come rebound to the elbow and down and help those guys that are in those disadvantaged situations? And we were really poor in all three areas through the first dozen games. And again, I don't know. I'm sure there probably is some coach out there that's figured out a way to do it without contact. But I haven't figured out that way. And with us not doing much with contact here for the last month, it really shows. And we've been really poor in that area. The questions about the Cayman Islands tournament, I'll answer it in two parts. Number one, I thought the Caymans was terrific. The tournament was phenomenal. The venue was great. The teams were not who we wanted to play because we didn't take care of business in the first game. I wish we would have had a shot at Boise and Boston College, but we didn't. We played who we played and didn't play particularly well. But to your point, you hear a lot of talk in the national media right now from Coach Hurley at UConn and some of the high major folks, how they really don't want to play in those three games in 3 days, exempt tournaments. Well, we feel precisely the opposite. Ultimately our season comes down to our ability to execute 3 solid game plans in 3 days. So we feel like it's excellent practice for us. So I think that the one positive you take out of that, aside from the beautiful setting and the beach and the water and all that stuff, the one positive is on day 2 and day 3, I thought we executed better. Especially day 2, we played really poorly, I thought, for, about 16 or 17 minutes of that game, and I thought our guys showed some real desire, albeit against an opponent we should have beaten more handily. But we did show some desire and desire to win and desire to just figure it out. And at some point when you get in those 3 games and 3 day situations, it comes down to desire because you can't game plan everything. And there's gonna be some just odd things that happen when you have that many repetitions. 210 possessions roughly in 3 days is a lot. You can't game plan for them. There's gonna be odd things that happen, and the team that deals with the unexpected better typically is a team that comes out victorious in those situations.
Anyone else back here?
Absolutely. Too many good players is a problem, just like not enough. The difference is the solution. There is a solution for too many good players. It's me having to deal with family members and everybody else, the coaches and all the people that think that they know how to do their job better than me. And with not enough players, there's no solution. So it's definitely a lesser of two evils. I mean, we proved this year that early in the season, we went through a lot of injuries. And did we stub our toe a couple of times? Yes. But we're fortunate we had as many players as we did because we're able to overcome. So it's going to be an issue. We've got some positional battles that need to be sorted, and these guys are going to have the rest of this week to kind of sort things out, and then we'll have 1 or 2 more weeks throughout the year where they'll have a chance to really make a dent. And of course, we'll have somebody else that'll get hurt or not play well, and hopefully the guy that's sitting behind them will be positioned and ready mentally to capitalize when their opportunity arises.
Anything else for Coach Huss before we let him go? We got started late, so we're a little after 1, but pretty good timing. Great job by the host, if you ask me. So, all right, Coach. Appreciate the time as always. We'll see you Saturday.
See you then.
Novant Health Fieldhouse on Saturday. It's the home of the Greensboro Swarm of the NBA G League, App State, and your High Point Panthers. So be sure to be there. 2 o'clock tip. 2 o'clock tip. And if you can't make it, it'll be on ESPN Plus, and I'll be there.
No, make it. We want you there.
We want you back. Yes, yes. Listen to him, not me. Thanks, everybody. Thanks to Sweet Old Bills, as always.